Let's have a hard question. I mean, a hard conversation. If Facebook just allows everything, won't it go nuts? Like, isn't it possible we'll see crazy extremism and crazy groups of people just screaming violence or whatever? I mean, actually look at Antifa and look at Black Lives Matter violence, 140 plus days of rioting.
Yeah.
And isn't it because they won't check them? They won't say stop advocating for violence?
Yeah, I think there's the potential. I mean, if there's some changes with Facebook and more things are, if in general more things are allowed, and it's funny because the left always claims that the Facebook's not doing enough to censor hate speech, when there's a bunch of people on the list that are right wing, but there's nobody on the left, even segregationists on the left, they're never on the list. But I think there's a lot of crazy stuff on the internet. I mean, I think we're barely even beginning to grasp like how influential the internet is, how powerful it's become. In the last 20 years, we've seen this technology revolution. So I don't think even the leading technologists or even the people who created the internet understand what it's become. That goes into the larger debate of what's allowed on the internet. I mean, there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff on the left and the right, both parts.
Do you think there is some kind of collusion between Democratic politicians and Facebook?
100%.
You do think so?
Yeah. So here, let me say this. Indirectly, at the very least. At the most, direct collusion.
So, did you ever witness a Democratic politician coming in and talking with anybody or any kind of evidence that they were?
I do not have direct evidence. What I can say is there's a group of about 6 people. So I talked to one of my team manager, Alexis, and she had interactions with the global policy team at Facebook. There's about 6 people who determine the policy, and she was telling me they all kind of have the same mindset, and they're all based in San Francisco. As far as direct collusion with Democrat politicians, I talked to a journalist with the New York Post the other day, 1 or 2 days ago, and he was finding this connection between Twitter executives who had this revolving door with the Obama administration.
Well, so there was a Facebook employee who joined Joe Biden's team and a Twitter employee who did as well. And I think the guy's name is Andy Stone. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Facebook Communications previously worked for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So we've seen that there is the revolving door between Facebook and Democrats and Twitter and Democrats. They're working for Joe Biden. Yeah. This guy announced that they were going to censor the New York Post story on Hunter Biden. Like that's crazy. I mean, this is a prominent American newspaper started by Alexander Hamilton in 1801, and I believe it was 1801, and he's like, well, we're going to censor the story anyway. This guy worked for the Democrats. Mm-hmm. Apparently, I guess he worked for Barbara Boxer before. So, what makes you look? I get it. We have those stories, but based on your experience working with this company, what made you think that there was potentially direct collusion?
As far as direct collusion, I mean. Look, I didn't work in the Facebook offices in Menlo Park. So I interacted with some, the people I interact with were mainly Cognizant employees, to be frank. Now, Sean Browder is the person who interacted constantly with the client, with Facebook. And so what I can, what I've noticed from my conversations with him is, first of all, he's very left-leaning, a Bernie Sanders supporter. They are very interested in, me bringing up trends about right-wing extremism, like Boogaloo. And for example, the Virginia gun rally in January was labeled as like, hey, watch out for hate speech or, racist groups, at this Virginia gun rally. So, I mean, the evidence I have is not really, it's not like I had conversations with Facebook employees who said, yes, a Democrat politician told us to change the policy. So I think there's more of an indirect effect from all these leftist organizations.
So just more of like an extreme bias.
Yeah, more of extreme bias. I mean, are there politicians that are probably buddy-buddy with people at Facebook? I'm sure there are. I mean, we had Joshua Fauerstein get banned like a month ago or whatever, and the only way he could, get his account back was by reaching out to Trump officials, like people he knew. So like, if that's happening on that side, let's just, the same thing's probably happening on the opposite end. I mean, if people are probably, giving favors or helping out Democrat politicians. I did notice, here's something huge that I do have evidence of, is something called the shields that they have, that Facebook has. So it's called the Fire Brigade. Let me see if I have the notes on here. But basically, there's different shields. So I ran across some content. I tried to like action it, and it was like, you cannot action this content. There is a shield on this content. So Fire Brigade stands for like PR fire. So there's different tags. So there's like high pry, X-check tag, and business tag. So you cannot delete or touch certain content because it has this shield or tag associated with it. So it may very well be that there's accounts that, you know, should be protected, kind of like VIPs, that you cannot delete.
Interesting.
I ran into the same thing when I worked at Uber, because we would deal with fraud and partner fraud, but we'd occasionally run into VIP accounts, like really big celebs that we didn't want to piss off or have their account canceled or something. So
we seeing everything we've seen over the past year, you know, someone like myself, I read the news all day and I have my opinions on whether or not Trump's going to win. But with your experience with how big tech is manipulating the elections, essentially, do you think Trump is going to win?
I think that Trump has a good chance of winning. I think Facebook's doing everything they can to like push people a certain way. There was a cartoon image of Trump shooting himself, and Facebook said we're going to allow that. There was who was the guy who tried to assassinate Reagan? He got out of jail or out of the hospital.
Hinckley?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and so he came out of the hospital, and there was this meme implying that he should shoot Trump, and Facebook allowed that.
Wow.
Classy.
And so, yeah, I really think there's a chance that you know, despite all that, there's a good chance Trump will still win, especially when you're going against someone like Joe Biden.
I wonder if it's not despite all that. I wonder if it's because of it. I wonder if people are sick and tired of seeing the psychotic behavior of the left, the cancel culture stuff. Like, you don't see videos of people, you know, threatening Joe Biden. You don't see these pictures or videos mocking him. I have to imagine there's regular people who might see, like, remember when Kathy Griffin held up the head?
Yeah.
I wonder how many votes Trump got from that, from people who are just like, oh, that's disgusting. What's wrong with you? You know?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden kind of just like, I don't like these people, you know?
I think it's backfired. Yeah, I think you're right in a lot of regards. I think it's backfired because there's so much hate against Trump that the normal individual who's not hateful is like, hey, why is there all this hate against Trump? And so, yeah, I think that's very possible. There's been pushback, and it's kind of worked against them. And the fact that I revealed this damaged, you know, Facebook's reputation and brought to light certain things. So, excuse me. If Facebook had been playing by the rules from the get-go, then I wouldn't have been able to film their discrepancies, them breaking their own rules.
Can't Facebook just be like, oh no, this is cognizant. These oh darn it, these evil contractors. We had no idea.
Well, some of the posts they can't really argue that because, for example, when they told us to not treat abortion as a violent death, it said the Facebook team has given us. It said the FB team has given us guidance to not treat abortion as a violent death.
That reminds me of my conversation with Jack Dorsey when I was explaining to them that their rules are inherently biased. And, you know, Vijay and Dorsey were immediately like, oh, no, that's not true. What are you talking about? And I said, you have a misgendering policy. Like, you straight up say if you misgender someone, if you went to a conservative and said, don't misgender someone, they would assume you're saying if someone is born male, then you call him he, him. And if born female, you know, she, her. Whereas Twitter's perspective is the inverse. If somebody says their identity is, you know, then you got to use that. So to a conservative, what Dorsey views as misgendering, it's inverted. And if their rules are built around a progressive understanding of these definitions, what they mean, then they're inherently biased.
Yeah, because like, and you can't really tell that you're biased. If you're really that biased, you can't tell that you're biased. And there's that groupthink effect that we saw, you know, in 2008 when the media just fawned over President Obama. But an example of that related to misgendering is we had so in the hate speech policy, if you're attacking someone like a race or an ethnicity and you have like a stick figure that represents them, then that can still violate. So if you have a little cartoon imagery of a Christian figure, like a little stick figure kicking a Muslim stick figure out of Europe, that violates the hate speech policy because the stick figures are representing that characteristic, the ethnicity of the race. And so with gender, so there was a meme that showed that was calling certain genders a mental illness. So I think it was like non-binary or something like that. He was saying, and it said this is a mental illness, but there was no stick figure. It was just the symbols.
Right.
So it's purely talking about the ideology. So Facebook backtracked because for a while they're like, okay, allow it, does not violate our policy. But then they backtracked and they said, actually, we're going to delete this. We know it does not violate the policy, but we're going to delete this. So once again, more exceptions. I have a list of like 30 examples here, but
Bro, it's human centipede.
yeah, it's human centipede.
These Bernie bros are
Unfortunately.
getting news from progressive websites, and these writers are getting their news from Facebook posts,
Yeah.
and then it's all being recycled over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Twitter is probably one of the worst things that ever happened to journalism because it created a feedback loop among journalists where they just follow each other and share the same stories over and over again. And Facebook's algorithm essentially promoting intersectionality because it's got more keywords, more buzzwords, and it's shot content. So long as they allow it, it will continue to get worse. So here's what I think happens. These people on Facebook accidentally got sucked into this vortex.
Yeah.
Where content that was about police brutality and intersectionality was socially acceptable because racism bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it combined all these keywords, so it made money, and that was the perfect storm. These people were reading the stuff on Facebook, believed it all, then got hired at companies to moderate and said, oh, but these things are true. I see them all the time. That's okay. And then the journalists see the same thing and write the stories and create this feedback loop where they're all spinning away in their little human centipede vortex off in the corner while regular people are confused as to what is going on.
Yeah.
Because regular people aren't in that world. That's the craziest thing to me is that like Joe Biden struggling to find that space between regular America and the Democrats is just, it's not there. And that's why he's trapped in this fracking thing. So you watched the debate, I assume.
Yeah, I watched the debate.
The reason Joe Biden lied and said we're going to ban fracking is because the activist left is in that vortex with these people at Facebook, with these journalists, and they believe insane things, and they're a tiny group of people, relatively. So Joe Biden, if he wants to be the Democratic nominee, you got to say the craziest thing imaginable. And that's why even Bernie was like going off the rails, and their policies kept getting crazier.
Yeah.
Then once Biden won, now he's got to talk to regular America again. And so he's like, no, I don't want to ban fracking. And they're like, here's a video of you saying it over and over again. So I can't imagine him winning. He chased. So here's what I'm hoping. Here's my optimism. I think you've got the desperate Democrats chasing after Twitter, the Twitterati left, who are in this human centipede vortex. And it's going to backfire on them because regular people don't live there. Regular people don't know what Joe Biden's on or talking about when he says these things. And I think that's why they're so desperate, to run. I think they're running against Trump, like anti-Trump. Joe Biden is not the candidate. The candidate is, do you like Trump or hate Trump?
Yeah.
And they're doing that because Joe Biden can't possibly please the Democrats. They are split up in a million different ways, and they'll never get back the moderates. In fact, the party seems to be shrinking based on Gallup's latest polling.
Yeah.
That the party affiliation for Democrats has gone way down. So we'll see how that plays out, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Facebook's been involved in the elections. They've certainly taken a central role. And it's weird because I saw this app I have where you get like a discount on your gasoline. It's called like Get Upside. And I saw this little notification that popped up and then it disappeared. It's like, hey, if you vote, we'll give you 10 cents off per gallon. I'm like, I'm going to take that to the Attorney General in Arizona. Yeah. Same thing with Schlotzsky's. If they can't offer you a Schlotzsky sandwich shop.
Yeah, I'm familiar. They offered money something?
A while back, like they were offering a free sandwich if you bring in your voted sticker, which violates Arizona law.
Yeah.
So that's been my biggest complaint is like this entire
Schlotzsky's
time.
is so good.
It's such a good sandwich.
Yeah,
They really
fair.
should give you a free sandwich. They should change change election law.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my thing is like, if Schlotzsky's can get in trouble for that, look what Facebook's doing on a global scale. I was moderating content in Latin America, in Venezuela, in Mexico, the Mexican presidential election. I saw some, content about Spain. Facebook has training decks for Poland, for Taiwan, for like every country imaginable. Like in Poland, they freaking Facebook shut down their Independence Day march every year because they called it like hate speech. So the amount of, and they're always purging these like nationalist groups in Spain or in Europe. And so I just think that, the amount of power they have and influence they have is immense, and they're using all of it to try to influence this election in the name of, protecting against hate speech.
It's a feedback loop. and it's going to implode at some point. Because the things they believe are getting more and more unhinged, and it literally doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like when you see the degree to which, I'll put it this way. Ocasio-Cortez gets 400,000 concurrent viewers on her Twitch stream.
Yeah, I heard about that.
This is the future of politicians.
Dude.
This woman, with all due respect, I respect that she was a bartender, and it's part of the American dream, you know, that anybody can be a politician. It's for, of, and by the people. So you don't got to be the smartest person in the world. You don't got to be rich, and that's pretty incredible. But man, does she not know anything about what she's doing? The bills that she's gotten passed have been like renaming post offices, and yet she still gets all of these leftists screaming and cheering for her. And I was talking to my friend, this guy I know earlier. There's a viral post by Sophia Narwitz of all of these leftist blue checks mocking Trump for saying coyotes were bringing kids over the border. Coyote, of course, is the name of the smugglers who bring people across the border.
Yeah.
All of these people thought that Trump was literally talking about coyotes carrying children, like the dingo, you know, the dingo ate my baby or whatever. It was a combination of ignorance and arrogance. And then when I see AOC, and I see her getting 400,000 Twitch stream views, I'm just like, our politicians of the future, it's going to be idiocracy. They're going to be influencers who know nothing, but man, can they get those views? Because she won her primary. She might not win re-election. She probably will. You know, because there are still Republicans, and maybe I really doubt it. She's going to win. And that's crazy because what has she done other than rename some post offices and then offer up ridiculous policies? No, she's an influencer. She's got 10 million.
Hot, though.
She's got 10 million followers on Twitter. Sure, that's part of being an influencer.
She can dance.
She dances. And you take someone who has no idea what's going on. You put. We are going to have politicians who are literally going to have flame wars on Twitter, and that's going to be at no policy discussion whatsoever.
Well, they should have a term limit then. In and out. If you don't do anything too bad, do something with your time. Don't waste my time.
I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is people don't vote based on policy. They're voting based on Orange Man bad. They're voting based on who I like or don't like.
That's how Reagan got in too. He was famous. He was a B-list actor.
But who was Reagan running against in '84? Do you know?
George Bush Sr.
Was it Mondale?
Mondale. It was like a horrible campaign.
Yeah.
And what we've seen with Nixon as well is that there are these, when things go too far left, it does snap back. So maybe we're secretly going to see this big Trump wave, and everyone's going to be shocked, and the polls are going to be wrong.
I think so.
But what I kind of see happening in the future is the left is being wound up into this psychotic space, and it's so insane that policy can never be argued. That's why they're running Joe Biden, and that's why he hides in the basement. Because if Joe Biden comes out, they're going to be like, wait a minute, I disagree with that. So better just hide him and then say, you hate Trump though, right? The politicians we're going to have in the future are going to be people who are like, I have no idea policy, but man, left, woo! And they're going to be like, yeah, left. And it's going to be literal tribe, it's going to make teams.
Well, it's like the Hunger Games movie with Pan Am and Katniss Everdeen.
Seriously.
What was her name? Lawrence, the actress.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, yeah. And, you know, you have Pan Am, you have Cornelius Snow, and they're having like nonstop parties in the Capitol. They have no clue what's going on in the rest of the country. Exactly. And then they
everybody.
celebrate, you know, people dying.
Right.
And competing against each other, killing each other, you know, barbaric fashions.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.